Chapter 3. New Clothes and Old Memories. The hood was lined with heavy fur, and Lucien burrowed into it, pulling the material closed tight around his face so he looked out at the world through a narrow slit. It made it easier to keep on walking without catching Cree's eye. Lucien was not holding on to her for support anymore. He was suffering for it, but refused to admit anything. He had argued with Cree the day they had left the small town. He was still not sure what had started it. They had ventured into the town looking for new clothes. All good so far. Lucien had spotted a pair of red leggings in a shop window and urged Cree to come inside. Perhaps she had shown a touch of resentment then. Nonetheless, the tabaxi had followed him into the shop. Like the town itself, the clothing store had been small, but it held a riot of colour, and Lucien had taken no time at all selecting the 3 items he desired. A pair of those red pants, which it turned out had little golden details swirled into them. He had seen the tabaxi scowl as she noticed this too. A black shirt, this at least Cree seemed to take no issue with, and a heavy-duty winter hood. Lucien chose it for the hidden motif of flowers in the lining. There was no point in buying anything quite so extravagant as the coat they had abandoned at his graveside. The elements would destroy it this far north. But Lucien found himself clamouring for intricacies and patterns. He did not wish to be a walking shadow, leaving no impact or impression on the world. Cree, however, took the opposite opinion. She had flat out refused to even let him try the things on at first. She insisted that he get plainer, simpler, darker clothing. Lucien had assumed that she must be worried about them being noticed, but that tug in the back of his mind told him that was not her only motive. She doesn't want to be reminded. Of what, my death? How would some new clothes remind her of my death? Then the voice inside of Lucien said something rather alarming. Because I lied to her when she met me. She thought I was you. Lucien grappled with himself. What on earth was that supposed to mean? He had thought of this inner conversation as just a way to rationalise his own musings, a way to work out how he felt and log away information as it came to him. But that answer had not been of his own making. Lucien must have had an awful look on his face because Cree had simply thrown a coin purse at him and stormed out of the shop to wait, hissing at him, "Do whatever you bloody well want, but I will make sure you never go off track again." What she had meant by that, Lucien hadn't yet worked out. He refused to ask her, though. He was finding it easier and easier to not say anything at all, and harder not to continue just talking to himself. Days on end trekking through the snow made it more difficult. Lucien was always the centre of the party, walking steadily alone as they all kept pace with him. The tiefling had the nagging suspicion that they were deliberately slowing to match his speed. Let them, he thought. Let them. If I'm so damned important to them, they can slow the hell down to walk with me. Another fortnight passed, then another. It had now been well over a month since Lucien had been resurrected. He was walking mostly fine now. His body was stronger, his limbs no longer screamed at him if they walked for more than an hour. His new clothes were keeping the heat in, and the healthier the tiefling got, the more he realised he did have a natural warmth about him after all. The frozen north was still just that, though. He was not about to make good on his quip and start waltzing around naked. The idea did not appall him, as he was certain it used to, though. That was weird. In fact, the more Lucien existed in this new lease of life, the weirder he began to feel. He was having dreams that did not feel like dreams at all. He awoke and could recall every detail. They started with dirt. Dark, dank earth in his face, his nose, his mouth. That smell, too. That same smell he had breathed in when Cree and the rest had brought him back. Lucien was now almost positive that he had been revived before. Somehow, somewhere, he had awoken, buried underground, and had fought to claw his way out. He knew it was true. It was not just a nightmare. It was his past. It had to be. It had to be. The next dream had seen him break the surface of a world he knew that he recognised. Alone still. So alone. The brightness had dazzled him just as it had a month ago, but it was a different sun, a different grave, a different Lucien. After that, he had welcomed the dreams every night, turning in early when he could, sleeping for as long as he could manage before the group had to move on. Cree suspected. She was pushing them harder and harder. They had not set up camp much before 8 p.m. for the last few days, and she always insisted that Lucien took the first watch with her, under the guise of wishing to talk, but they never did. She sat in stony silence while Lucien stoked the fire and daydreamed of the world he had once inhabited. Once or twice Lucien had let slip some fraction of his dreams. When he started seeing visions of a circus tent, a swirling mass of technicolor and lights and glitter, he had absent-mindedly mentioned it over breakfast. The entire group had stopped what they were doing and stared at him. Cree had slammed down her bowl and shouted that they needed to get ready to set off. Lucien had looked around wildly, but no one came to his rescue. The tabaxi rounded on him, glaring daggers straight into his soul. "No more about the bloody circus," she snapped. "You are Lucien. You are our Lucien. We are so close. Do not. Not now. No more." They had not spoken for nearly a week afterwards. But Lucien could not stop. His dreams were tantalizing. They ate away at his questioning mind, and with every one he felt that he grew closer and closer to an answer. He had seen creatures, great and small, put names to faces that he was sure he recognized, although in dreams he was introduced for the first time. Gustave, a lanky elven man, had rolled up into Lucien's dreams soon after the circus lights. He seemed kind. Lucien only wished he could speak, but in sleep all he could utter was one word. Empty. That puzzled him nearly the most of all. Was he empty? Was that what these dreams were trying to tell him? Am I empty? I was, but not any more. The voice in his heart was speaking again, and so often Lucien knew that it was not him, not he himself. There was somebody else in him. He was almost certain. Fletchling and Moondrop Travelling Carnival of Curiosities. The name was scrawled in huge looping letters across the entrance. Lucien looked up, wiping sweat from his brow. They had just finished hammering in the last pegs, securing the big top for another run. His breath caught in his lungs as he read the name. He had never been able to before, but this time, this night, he repeated it over and over in his mind. Fletching and Moondrop, Fletching and Moondrop. He would remember. He would remember, and when he awoke, he would remember too. A hand clamped onto his shoulder. It was huge but gentle. A giant of a woman was standing beside him, looking up at the tent with a small smile. "You did really good," she told him. "Would you like some food?" Lucien tried to say, "What is your name?" but all that came out was, "Empty." The woman took it in her stride. "Me too." With a kind nod, she turned Lucien around and led him over to a group of carnival folks who had set up a fire pit and dinner. Lucien sat in contented silence while the chatter raged on all around him. They all understood his lack of speech, but never left him out. A young dwarven girl had made it her mission to explain every single thing she could think of to the mute tiefling. Lucien realized that, a long time ago, he may have seen this as a nuisance, but not here. Not now. He enjoyed her company, perhaps the best of all. She was sat behind him on the grass, having already finished her own food. While Lucien ate, she braided flowers and leaves into his hair, picking up each and showing it to him first. "Leaf," she said, slowly, spinning the star-shaped greenery around in her hand. "They fall from trees. Look." She pointed to a canopy of branches just off beyond the fire. Lucien followed her finger and nodded. "And these," she went on, plucking another flower from the ground and showing him, "are daisies. Do you like them?" Lucien picked the little flower out of her hand and looked at its pale petals shimmering in the firelight. He nodded, smiling as he passed it back. "He's so sweet," the dwarven girl cried, weaving the daisy into his hair and appealing to the giantess sat beside both of them. "Don't you think we should name him?" "Gustave says he is getting something sorted," the woman assured the girl. "But he needs a name. We can't just keep calling him Empty." Lucien agreed. More than ever, he wanted to tell these people, to have them realize, to have them know. "My name is Lucien." But still he could not speak. He knew then, as he had all along, that this life was one he had lived before. But not like this. The mind he had existed in then had truly known nothing of him. Not his name, not his past, nothing. When this had been his life, Lucien truly had been empty.